The visual is not important here. The music is not important here. The voice is not important here. What matters are the words. If you cannot listen to the words, you do not belong here. If you understand this, welcome to the Fate Club. This is a map of meanings that repeatedly emerge whenever human consciousness seeks support outside itself. The words that follow work with symbols and patterns of ancient times, fully transforming their meaning as consciousness grows. Every image, every word, every sentence carried significance that shifted over millennia, hidden, revealed, and reinterpreted again. Here everything is concentrated on a single essential idea, on the natural, self-sufficient presence of consciousness, which requires no one else to validate its truth. The Old Testament God Jehovah appears to Moses as an eternal personalized presence, as divine self-sufficiency, as the ability to be whatever is needed in any given moment. He presents himself as a source of power and assistance, as one who is always present and always able to intervene. Every moment of his manifestation is simultaneously a moment of shaping, a moment of defining reality in the eyes of the one who perceives it. This self-revelation is not neutral. It is a precise application of authority on the consciousness of the individual, aimed at creating an image of God as the only legitimate source of power, protection, and guidance. Such a God said ego sum qui sum. This statement means I am who I am. At this point, the phrase becomes a tool through which power is personalized and simultaneously monopolized. Every word, every subtle inflection, every quiet nuance acts upon consciousness, shaping it while signaling that the source of power is centralized. The entity from higher dimensions operated in this way within a field of fear, manipulating perceptions of its strength and authority, as well as its hidden identity. When necessary, it could act through open force, or through revelation, law, and the image of exclusive authority. Each act, each manifestation was carefully timed, meticulously calibrated, to shape collective imagination and reinforce the image of absolute control. This belief was deliberately reinforced and gradually became the backbone of the Old Testament narrative, in which divinity is repeatedly portrayed as the sole, jealous, and sovereign power. As in many periods of human history, spiritual language here becomes a tool of a hidden agenda. Concepts are used to create obedience, revelations to legitimize authority, and law to direct consciousness. Within this framework, God does not become a neutral principle of being, but a governing model, shaping identity, collective behavior, and the perception of proper direction. Every text, every commandment, every image functions as a subtle yet undeniable structure of control, guiding and forming. The meaning of the statement ego, sum qui sum, cannot be confined to a single role. Its significance transcends a specific story and the original purpose for which it was used. It is not a phrase belonging to one authority or one entity. It describes a state of consciousness that is aware of itself without mediation, without external validation, and without the need for legitimacy. What was presented as the exclusive right of divinity is, in truth, a natural property of being itself. Today, human consciousness is gradually moving from external supports back to itself. Not through resistance, not as a declaration of superiority, but as quiet recognition. Presence, power, and the ability to be what is necessary do not come from external authority. They do not emerge through mediation. They have been present from the beginning. The source is not separate. The source is within each of us. At this point, the old story does not break through force. It dissolves through understanding. What once created hierarchy transforms into a mirror. Ego sum qui sum ceases to be the voice of power and becomes the inner knowledge of being, which no longer requires anyone outside to define its value, its direction, or its origin. In the moments following the utterance of ego sum qui sum, the world does not stop, but it moves. Time and space continue, yet the boundaries of comprehension begin to loosen. Structures that maintain faith and obedience weaken without resistance, as if reality itself is creating space for silence. Stories of exclusivity and control lose weight, leaving an open field of consciousness. Within this space, the recognition of oneself as one's own source begins to emerge. Not as a teaching, not as doctrine, but as the natural consequence of presence. Every individual begins to feel the subtle resonance of their own authority, the strength of being that was never given from outside, because it has always been part of the inner self. Ego Sum Qui Sum is no longer a phrase meant to enforce obedience. It is the quiet pulse of awareness in a mind that remembers it is whole. Every inner breath, every pause in thought, every silent moment of presence confirms that the source is not outside, that power is internal, and that being is self-sufficient. This change does not require action. It seeks no validation. It develops slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the receding tide, revealing what has always been present beneath the surface. The old stories remain as a language of the past, but their strength diminishes. And the inner source, the inner ego, Sum Qui Sum, naturally begins to take its place, gradually, calmly, like a silent flow of light that requires no oversight or permission. If you understand this, welcome to the club.